The Bengals are 0-2 again. But is Joe Burrow back? That and more right now on Enter the Jungle. Hi again, everyone, and welcome in to Enter the Jungle. I'm James Rapien. He is Andrew Fox Miller, and this is Cincinnati Bengals Talk. Catch us every single Tuesday at 8 Eastern right here on CBT, weekly on Bally Sports. And also, we're part of the Big Play Network and sponsored by Garage Beer, Andrew. I bet you were drinking a few Garage Beers on Sunday when the Bengals fell to the Kansas City Chiefs 26-25. And man, what a crazy game it was, a back and forth game. Let's start with Joe Burrow. Is Joe Burrow back? He finished 23 of 36, 258 yards, 2 touchdowns, did have the fumble, no interceptions. So I'll ask you, AFM, is Joe Burrow back?
I mean, I don't know about peak Joe Burrow, but I would say Joe Burrow's back. If we had that Joe Burrow against the New England Patriots, like we'd be having a much different conversation today, regardless of the outcome of the Chiefs game. Mistakes, those kind of weighed on me a bit after the game, thinking about it, the fumble especially, the inability to convert some key drives that they needed to be able to just keep the ball out of Mahomes' hand, things like that. But for the most part, for the Bengals, that happens. That happens for Joe Burrow. We've dealt with that since he started with this team, even during their best of times. So, yeah, I think we're back.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there. You could say define back, but what I would say is a week ago at this time, people were analyzing Joe Burrow picking up a water bottle.
That's right.
And asking him, my guy Ben Baby asking him, hey, did you see about the water bottle? Did you see about that? And Joe hadn't. You're right. This isn't the best we've seen Joe Burrow play, but scanning the field, reading the field, making the right decisions, not putting the ball in harm's way. There wasn't a near interception. There weren't many plays where the Chiefs had a chance to intercept it. And I get it. He put the ball on the ground on one where he scrambled up the middle, and that was a key moment. But overall, I thought that Joe Burrow put the Bengals in position to control that game and did exactly what you need Joe Burrow to do against that opponent in that environment, against that team, against that quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. And the thing that really stood out to me, Andrew, and after the game, obviously 26-25, I'm sure our viewers were heartbroken. The Bengals certainly heartbroken. Joe Burrow takes a few minutes to get dressed and shower and all of those things and cool down, probably collect his thoughts. And then at Arrowhead, you have to walk down this hallway. It's the famous hallway that Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift were caught in last year. The first picture of them, proof of them being a couple or whatever after a game. Joe Burrow's walking down that hallway, and I'm right behind him, and you can just tell that he is frustrated, mad, sad, annoyed, whatever you want to say, that they lost this game and that he was expecting to win this game, felt like they were going to win this game up until they didn't. And here's just a snippet of what Joe Burrow had to say afterwards.
As frustrating as I've had. Yeah, it's nice being back playing ball, but this one stings a little bit. Yeah, I thought I played fast and decisive today. Obviously, I got to hold on to the ball. That one was disappointing. Gifted him 6 points, so that was frustrating. Yeah.
That is, Andrew, is sad or upset. I mean, he said it was as frustrated as he's been. I think Super Bowl 56 is the only other time I've heard him more somber than that.
Yeah.
And he was dealing with a strained MCL then. That was when he suffered the knee injury and everything that comes with going to a Super Bowl. But yeah, I think that was a game Joe Burrow really expected to win.
His presence at that podium, very just stunned, despondent. I think in true Joe fashion, there was some calculating. There was some sort of like grappling with sort of next steps with whatever he needs to do to kind of process this. But if we want to talk about just sort of the optics or the vibe of Joe Burrow, though, I do want to take a step back. If we talk about is Joe Burrow back for a minute, there was also talk about sort of attitude, his stature on the field, his attitude that he was putting in front of his teammates, sort of the grit, determination. You saw that outwardly coming out of him, something we did not see in that New England game. So I'm going to give a little bonus points. Is Joe Burrow back? I mean, he had the He had the vibe going. He had the energy going until muted press conference.
By the way, I'm fine with that. I want authentic Joe in the press conference.
Yeah.
And if that means taking 4 seconds and then ending your answer with, yeah, really calmly, like we just heard, I'm fine with that. Joe, I want you to be authentic. And some days that is probably going to mean very little, that he says very little, or he goes about it the way he did on Sunday. You mentioned the energy, though. And I think that's a really good point when you ask if Joe Burrow's back, because that's what it takes in a game like that. And I got to be honest, Joe said, I didn't see any of that. You better believe Joe felt the criticism, and has felt the criticism, or the fact that he's become an afterthought for some nationally. And this is dating back to November when he suffered the wrist injury.
Oh, yeah.
And so, especially after last week, I think he was like, all right, I'm going to go into the King's house and I'm going to remind everyone who I am. And really, from the jump in that game, I felt like that's what he was doing. Not that he played perfect, not that the Bengals were playing perfect. There were so many mistakes. And we have a ton on Cincinnati Bengals talk if you want to check out different videos going over the mistakes and everything that happened on Sunday. But he still, the whole time, I'm sure, was like, hey, we're in control. We're going to do it. The video of him jumping up and down, and we're going to get into the pass interference call on Daijahn Anthony in a second. When he sees that on the sideline, he's got his helmet on, jumps up and down, and he's thinking he's going out on the field to kneel the game out. And instead, obviously, the Chiefs end up winning. But I think that was it. I thought he, like, if you want to do the
People dying inside moment sort of thing.
well, he grabbed Excalibur. He was like, I'm going to go take care of the king. And like in his mind, everything went about as well as it could outside of the fumble. And then they look up. I mean, they win the turnover battle. They've controlled the game. They've done exactly what they wanted to from start to finish. And for the most part, and you still end up losing.
Yeah. And you know what? If we don't talk about whether or not Joe Burrow's back, I think a good gauge of that also, if you flip things around, Chiefs fans out there that were watching that game, I have to think that you're seeing Burrow, his whole presence that he had out there. He was getting angry, but not in a losing my cool way, in a determined way. If you're a Chiefs fan, I have to think you're sitting there at home or at the game going, I'm a little nervous. I don't like this. I'm uncomfortable right now because I'm nervous that this is a threat. And they were right there the entire game. It was crazy.
Yeah. It's, to me, the best rivalry in the NFL. I've tweeted it. I said it on Locked On Bengals. I've said it on our channel. I'll continue to say it. And that's why. I mean, the Bengals, they go there, they give the Chiefs everything they can handle. Both teams responding the right way when they're dealing with adversity throughout the game. It's what you want to see in the NFL. Unfortunately, what you don't want to see is a rookie in a position to win the game get called for a penalty. Daijahn Anthony called for pass interference on 4th and 16, kind of sealed the deal for the Chiefs to go from losing to winning if you're Kansas City, and it took victory away from the Cincinnati Bengals. Was it the right call? We will discuss that coming up next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He is Andrew Fox Miller. I'm James Rapien. You can catch us every single Tuesday at 8 Eastern on the YouTube channel Cincinnati Bengals Talk, weekly on Bally Sports. And Andrew, let's get into the Daijahn Anthony pass interference penalty. That it's interesting because I've looked across the landscape over the past couple of days and really since that call. And I think there are a lot of people that say, yeah, it's a no-brainer. He got there early. They said it on the broadcast. Others that think that Anthony went straight up and Rice was the one that was fading back into him, and that Anthony has a right to the ball as well. Where do you stand on this call? And then I'll give you my thoughts.
Regardless of intent, whether he's going for the ball, whether he had the awareness of Rice, looking at even the all 22 footage of that, your Rice is coming in from his left side, and I'm not going to get into all the particulars, but I'm replaying this in my own head. Like, what awareness would I even have if I'm scanning the field and I'm eyeing that ball? There's some peripheral movement, I'm sure, with Rice, but I think he was just straight on that ball. You're a rookie. You're on the big stage again in this big rivalry right now to start off the season. You're thinking you've got your moment. I wouldn't be surprised if that's all it was, because if you watch it in real time, it happens so quickly. I haven't even looked yet. I should, because hey, it might be the thumbnail for our YouTube video of this show, James. Did they even get a picture of that moment when it actually happened? Maybe they did, but it happened that quick.
They did.
You could have some high shutter speed on that camera, because in slow motion, it's like, yeah, man, you got there a little too early. When you're watching it in real time in that broadcast, my stance on it, textbook, sure, yeah, by textbook, okay. If you're gonna follow rule book, yeah, I'm not gonna argue that. But all things considered, the circumstances, the fact that the ref kind of threw the flag a little bit later, again, it doesn't change things, but everyone's processing things so fast, and they chose that moment to throw the flag. I don't even know how they did it as quick as how they processed it in real time the way they did it. Because sitting at home watching a screen, I was having trouble until I saw the replay.
I'll say it right now, and I'm going to be very consistent with this, because the Bengals may win a game on this later this year.
Sure.
Where Joe Burrow throws it to Jamar, and Jamar gets bumped, or T, or insert whoever, Andre or whoever. I absolutely hate when a game is decided that way, because the moment that flag is thrown, you know the game is over.
Yep.
I hate it. It is the worst. To me, it's such a judgment call, because it's a 30-plus yard pass downfield, a heave, where Rice it's a jump ball attempt. Daijahn Anthony has good position. Daijahn Anthony goes up for it. He does go straight up. It's not like he did not jump into Rice. I think and it's easy. Like, if you look at images, it's easy to be like, oh, well, there's contact. Or if you look at it in slow-mo, oh, there's contact.
Sure.
Contact can't mean and doesn't mean pass interference. It's two different things. And that to me is what's really the holdup here. And just to be very, very clear, there might be a game later this year where the Bengals benefit from this. Zach Taylor said it, like, these calls can go either way. And if I had to guess, I would say this penalty is thrown 1 out of 5 times. Contact happens in these jump ball situations, whether it's a Hail Mary situation, end of half situation. That's what that was. 4th and 16, desperation, just heave. And it wasn't a 50-yard ball. I get it. So it's not technically a Hail Mary, but it was 30 plus. And so a little contact happened. There's no real chance that Rice has to catch it, wasn't going to catch it. And now the Chiefs suddenly win. It's that part from a football observer standpoint, I think, is bad, because it decides the game, much like Eagles Chiefs Super Bowl. And that was clearly interference, by the way, where he grabs him. I hate that the game's decided that way.
Yep.
Right. At the same time, I'm not going to come on here and on our channel, and I haven't, and blame the officiating, blame the refs.
No.
Because about 800 things went wrong. For every positive, and we're going to talk about the tight ends in a second, Mike Gesicki had a key drop. For every positive, Andre Joseph, 2 touchdowns. He should have caught a key ball on second down that would have given the Bengals a first down. For all the positives, Joe Burrow, well, he had the fumble. For everything you could say, Cam Taylor-Britt, one-handed interception, gets beat because he falls asleep at the wheel with Rashee Rice. Like, there's so many negatives that went with the positives that I can't blame the refs, because the Bengals didn't play a perfect game. And if you're going to go beat the defending champs, the back-to-back defending champs, in week 2, in their building, when they're rolling and feeling themselves, you're going to have to play more mistake-free ball than they did. They didn't. They came up a tad short. Daijahn Anthony, keep your head up. I have no problem with him being out there, by the way. He's played that role throughout camp, and no issues at all with that. All right, it's time to get to some positive stuff. And we're going to get to a key position coming up in just a second. But we also got a dose of reality, Andrew. The Bengals are 0-2 for a 3rd straight season. Does this year feel different? Is it different than those first 2 0-2 starts? We'll discuss that coming up next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He's Andrew Fox-Miller. I'm James Rapien, and the Bengals are 0-2 for a 3rd straight year, Andrew. Man, oh man. It's just a rite of passage almost at this point. In 2022, they were really excited coming off of Super Bowl 56, and then Joe Burrow has the appendectomy, and they lose a heartbreaker to the Steelers where craziness happens. and then they go to Dallas and lose, and they're 0-2. Well, then in a 5-day span, they beat the Jets and they beat the Dolphins to improve to 2-2. And I do think that this year feels like that in a lot of ways, because you have a chance in a 6-day span, Monday Night Football against Washington. Then you head to Carolina, where Andy Dalton could start for the Panthers. Ooh. And you play those two teams. You got a chance in 6 days to make up ground and end September 2-2.
I think purely from a win-loss perspective, I obviously agree with you. This is they have a prime opportunity for 2-2. I'm trying not to reflect on the fact that it should be better than 2-2, because here we are. But I also think from just how it feels, if we look at these last 2 games, I mean, especially if you think about last season with the whole calf issue, like it didn't feel like Joe. It didn't look like Joe. And we just said earlier in this Kansas City game, Joe came out. He was alive against the Chiefs, and we didn't have that from him in 2023. So, yes, 2-2, but I also think like we're not waiting around for that. I know it's not a fair comparison, but there was like that San Francisco game last season where all of a sudden it was like, here we go. I feel like we're much closer to that moment than we were this time last year.
Yeah, I think last year was weird because of the calf and just the uncertainty with it. After that second loss, he re-aggravates the calf, and it's like, man, is it Jake Browning on Monday night? Is it Joe Burrow? What is it? And that's why I mentioned 2022, because that's how it feels to me. It feels much more like all right, Joe is continuing to make progress from the thing that he's dealt with. This, a wrist, being much more serious than the appendectomy. But the appendectomy was really serious. He lost weight. He was trying to build strength on the fly, all of those things. And so now it's like, all right, you have 6 days. You have a 6-day window here. And if you could just right the ship, then you're going to play the same team that you played in week 5 in 2022 this year, the Baltimore Ravens. They went to Baltimore that time and ended up losing a close one. Baltimore comes here in week 5. So you can't get ahead of yourself. And I said at minimum they need to be 3-1 at the end of September. All right, well, they didn't get it done. But you can't let the Patriots game haunt you forever. You got to move on. And the way you move on is you beat Washington, you beat Carolina, regardless of who's playing quarterback, regardless of what's going on. And then you have a divisional matchup where you can get right and get your first AFC win of the year. And so the Bengals, they're in position to do that, to right the ship, to flip the script. But man, it's hard digging out of these 0-2 holes. And I'm not assuming they're going to be 2-0 over their next 2 games, because it's hard to win in this league. It's going to be hard to play Washington, even if they are a flawed team. Carolina's dealing with a lot. You should go there and win. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. So these next 2 games are going to say a lot about this team, how they respond, the urgency that they have. And if they can get both of them, then you can see the parallels. And you want to compare them to the 22 team, not the 23 team. The 22 team is the one that ended up in the AFC Championship game anyway. So we will see if the Bengals can right the ship here over the next few weeks.
And make a statement in the division. You start off right in the division, yep. We're having a much more positive conversation as well. So yeah, even if it's a somewhat mixed bag, what I saw in these first, well, especially against the Chiefs, that team, regardless of what we're dealing with, injuries, what have you, some deficiencies on the defense, whatnot, obviously played great, but we're worried about health and things like that. We start racking up wins in this division. I would love to be able to, hey, division champs again. Like all of that is still right there. So
it used to be a position of weakness, Andrew. I think it's a strength. I think it's safe to call it a strength. We're going to switch gears and get to the most optimistic part of the program. The Bengals tight ends, they're awesome. We'll discuss them coming up next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. I'm James Rapien. He is Andrew Fox Miller. Now let's get to the Bengals tight ends. Andrew. Let's get to the Bengals tight ends for a minute. Did you see those guys? I mean, just give tight ends coach James Casey the MVP for week 2, which I'm sure he doesn't want because the Bengals didn't win. But my goodness, Mike Gesicki, Erick All, Drew Sample combined for 14 receptions, 151 yards. Gesicki leads the way with 7 catches for 91 yards. They move him all over the field, all over the formation. He's motioning. He's lining up in the slot. He's lining up outside. Erick All and Drew Sample blocking their tails off and making some big catches, all with 4 receptions. I mean, it's unique to see the Bengals operate this way, but as long as if T. Higgins is out, I think it is fair to say that Mike Gesicki is going to be wide receiver 2. And I think this trio of tight ends, we're going to see a lot of this 1 running back, 3 tight end set that we saw. They opened the game with the 13 personnel. I think you're going to see a lot of this trio moving forward.
Yeah, wide receiver 2, Mike Gesicki, but I mean, even against the Chiefs with wide receiver 1 numbers compared to the rest of the team right now. So yeah, not to harp on things, but we talked about people overlooking Mike Gesicki. We talked about fantasy football, borderline like top 30 by some outlets. Not saying he's going to be hanging those kind of numbers weekly, but this guy's going to get production. And yeah, even if T. Higgins comes back, you've got Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, whatever week that's going to be, Gesicki, we said time and time again, very well could operate as that sort of wide receiver 3 in terms of where they're going to put him on the field and the overall production that he's going to get in the receiving game. I loved it. I loved it. I love that I'm even watching the beginning of this game and Drew Sample's just kind of lumbering down the field. I'm like, Drew Sample, love it. I love Drew. Everybody it was always like this point of contention because of his draft pedigree, but here we are. He's doing great things for the team. And like you said, blocking, Erick All mixed in with that. And I can't wait to see his ceiling. I don't know if we'll see it this season, but I want glimpses and I like where we're heading with him.
Yeah. Erick All, stock up. Buy all that stock. Good news is I bought it like a month ago. So
yeah, okay.
I literally saw him get into it with the Colts at the joint practice, and I was like, "Oh, I've seen everything I need to know." He likes blocking.
Insider information there. You didn't want to share that.
I tweeted out that they got into it, but like he sticks up for his teammates. He's butting heads with guys. Love it. Buying stock in Erick All, buying stock in the Bengals tight ends room. Best tight end room of Joe Burrow's tenure for sure. They're producing. I expect it to continue, whether it's blocking, catching, all of the above. This Bengals offense, it is evolving, and the tight ends are going to be a big part of it. Make sure that you subscribe right here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk on YouTube. Check us out every single week at 8 Eastern. And for Andrew Fox Miller, I'm James Rapien. Thank you so much for watching. Enter the jungle.